It only takes one person to change the direction in the life of someone else. Grammy-nominated Deborah Allen was sure that music was what she wanted, and as a teenager, she just forged ahead. There was no plan B in sight. Fortunately, after moving to Nashville, Plan A worked out in a grand fashion. With hits like Baby I Lied, I've Been Wrong Before, I Hurt For You, Rock Me, and many more. And it all started one day at IHOP. A man changed the direction of her life. This is her story. This is today's Nashville. This is Faith. Beautiful Deborah Allen, thank you so much for inviting me into your home. What an honor and blessing it is to sit down in your beautiful house. Tell me about this room.
Thank you. Well, this room is where a lot of music is made. I've written a lot of songs on this piano. And it's, you know, this house is definitely lived in. I mean, I've traveled a lot and gathered some things around the world as I travel. And so, you know, it's got a lot of fond memories in it, but it's definitely lived in, and we have a fun time here.
Well, you know, I was reading a little bit about you. You came to Nashville. Let's talk about that, because I love how, you know, a favorite restaurant, something happened there. Can you share about it?
Yeah, well, you know, I'm originally from Memphis, and I started out there, and there's a whole story how it evolved that I got to Nashville. But when I moved to Nashville a long time ago, there was an IHOP at the very top of Music Row. And I mean, you could go in there and see hit producers, hit songwriters, artists would go in there in between sessions. It was just a cool place to go, and I found out about it. Well, actually, I got a job there. And to tell you the funniest truth, I wound up first working at Lum's, and it paid $1 an hour. But I told the lady, I said, I don't feel right taking this tip. She goes, oh, honey, you'll get used to it. So, but you know what, I really didn't. I thought, I'm going to go work at the IHOP because I like their food better. So I took a pay cut. I was getting 65 cents an hour, but the tips were really good, and I loved all the people there. But when I quit working there, I still loved everybody there. I could show up and eat by myself and not feel like the lonely girl. So one morning I thought I would go down and get some breakfast. So I went down to the IHOP, and I was sitting there. I can just feel myself in that booth in that little red print dress, and I looked across the restaurant, and I saw this guy with black sunglasses and jet black hair, and then this guy with salt and pepper hair. And I thought, those guys have got to be in the music business. So don't ask me why I did this, Terry, but I gathered myself up, and I walk over to the edge of their booth, and I go, excuse me, but are y'all in the insurance business? I go, no, darling, we're in the music business. I slide into that booth. I go, that's what I was thinking. Listen, I'm trying to get started. I'm a singer. I mean, if I were them, I might have said, look, we just got our pancakes. We'll talk to you later. But they were so sweet to me. They talked to me for a long time. I thought I would never see or hear from them again. By the way, it was Roy Orbison and Joe Melson that I was in the presence of. So it was amazing. They were so warm and wonderful, took me seriously and gave me some advice. But a couple of weeks later, I went by AFTRA to let them know I had a telephone. And they go, oh, man, we're so glad to see you. We've been, someone's been looking for you. We can give them your number now. I said, who's looking for me? He said, Joe Melson. They want you to come and sing on a Roy Orbison record. I said, you're kidding me. So they gave me my first opportunity in the studio. I can still remember how much I got paid. It was $87.50. And it wasn't a real big famous record. It was more of like a discount collection record, but still, that was a pretty wonderful opportunity.
Well, you know, I love your vision, and I remember you saying when you came to Nashville, you had Plan A, and there was no Plan B.
Eventually, I auditioned and got a job at Opryland, and I loved it. I worked there on the showboat. I did a little TV special that they did at the park, and then they auditioned people to go to Russia, which I was part of the Opryland troupe that went to Russia.
What was that like?
It was amazing. Tennessee Ernie Ford was the star of the show, and we were surrounding Tennessee Ernie, and it was really actually a history show of how country music evolved over here. But it was amazing. We went to Yerevan, Baku, Tbilisi, well, of course, Moscow, and there's one other place that I'm not thinking of right now, but 5 places there, and it was an amazing trip of a lifetime. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world, and I especially wouldn't trade getting to know Tennessee Ernie Ford. He was sort of like a father figure. He had a good time with the guys. They had a good time, but for me, he was always, kind of giving me some advice.
So when you got back from Russia, then what happened with you?
Oh, well, that's when I decided there's no way I could have a plan B, because I was actually asked to come back and work at the park, which would, to me, it felt comfortable because I knew I'd be getting a weekly paycheck, which that's kind of sometimes rare in the music business, because most people make money with residuals and things like that. But I went back and I auditioned, and I don't know, something just felt like I shouldn't get too comfortable. I thought, I want to challenge myself. I want to throw myself out there into the world of just creativity and see where it leads me. I didn't want to get too used to counting on it. And I'm glad that I did, because I wound up falling into a nest of some of the greatest songwriters and artists of all time. My dearest friend was Marie Barrett, who worked at Waylon Jennings' office. So I was there, John Hartford would come in sometimes. In fact, Marie wound up marrying John.
Well, how old were you during this time?
At that time, I was probably about 19, maybe getting close to 20. Cal Lenning got his start there, right there at Waylon's office, and I met a character named Shel Silverstein. And Shel Silverstein is a great poet, songwriter. He wrote on a cover of a Rolling Stone. He wrote A Boy Named Sue and Big Brass Bed for Brenda Lee. He's just an incredible songwriter. So here I was. I had just gotten back from Russia, walked away from a solid job where I could make money. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I had gotten this happy hour job at the Spin Spanner. So I told Shel, I said, Shel, I'm kind of at a crossroads. I don't know what I'm going to do. I said, would you come hear me sing at the happy hour at Spin Spanner? He said, sure. He kind of had this ragged voice, and he looked like a pirate. Everybody loved Shel. He was just so eccentric and such a great poet. Well, so he showed up. I did my set, and after the set was over, I go, so what'd you think? He goes, well, I think you got a good voice. And I went, oh, boy, I'm getting ready to get discovered. And then he said, there's a lot of great singers here in Nashville. My heart kind of deflated. And but he said, you know how good you feel up there on that stage? And I was like, yeah, I didn't know where he was going with this. He goes, that feeling goes away, doesn't it? And I had to admit that it did. The longer you're off stage, the excitement wears off. He goes, have you ever thought about writing songs? I said, well, I've written poems, but never a song. He goes, I think you ought to think about writing songs,
Well, you know what? We're going to talk about that.
Okay.
And when we come back, because you have written so many songs, and you've had #1 hits yourself, and we're going to talk about that right after the break.
All right. Thanks, Terry.
Deborah, before the break, we were talking about Shel Silverstein.
Yes.
Tell me about that conversation.
Oh, well, we were talking about that day that he suggested that I consider writing songs, and he was just saying, a song is something that you can keep with you forever, and you can write your own style. And he goes, besides, the sun doesn't shine on the same dog's back every day. And I knew what he meant by that. You can't have a #1 hit song every day. I didn't know when I was going to have my first one, but it made sense to me. And I said, well, okay, I'll try to write a few songs, and I'll run them by you. I don't want to make a fool of myself. So I wrote a couple of a cappella songs. One's called My Mother and Daddy Song. My first song was called 4-Leaf Clover, and I came back and sang it for him. And he goes, I think you got away with words. I go, you do? He said, yeah. And so then I was going to see my parents. And so I walked in. My mother was in the kitchen doing something. And she goes, well, hey, Deb, sugar, what you doing these days? I said, oh, I'm a songwriter. I mean, he changed my life in an instant. I couldn't have asked for a more perfect person to cross my path, you know, and he had so much impact on me because he's such an excellent writer, so all-round talented. And for him to take that kind of time with me and encourage me and then tell me I had what it takes, well, I was in.
Yeah. Let's go back and talk about your #1 hits. And you've written, you performed. What was that like?
Yeah, well, my very first #1 song as a songwriter I wrote with my good friend Bruce Chanel, who had Hey, Hey, Baby. Remember that old hit? And Kieran Kane of the O'Kanes. And we were at a session one day and getting bored waiting for our turn to go in. So we started this song called Don't Worry About Me, Baby, which I really was excited about recording, but for one reason or another, God had a different idea. And Janie Fricky recorded it, and she did an excellent job. So she was my very first #1 hit. It's a BMI million airplay song. And then she went on to cut another song of mine called Let's Stop Talking About It. And so I love Janie. She's definitely one classy 80s lady. John Conley, I'm Only in It for the Love. That was a fun song. And Patti Loveless, I love her voice. Tony Brown, who wound up producing some things on me and actually signed me to RCA Records, he and Joe Galante.
What are some of the songs that you performed?
Oh, okay, yeah.
And they were #1s too.
Yeah, I've had #1s, and my biggest hit that everybody still loves to this day, and I'm so thankful for it. When it was on the charts, they called it, the promotion company department called it the record that wouldn't go away. And I said, well, that's okay with me. But seriously, it was on the pop charts, the adult contemporary charts, and the country charts. So it kind of crossed all boundaries.
Was it Baby I Lied?
Baby I Lied, yes. And then the follow-up to that was a #1 song on the country charts called I've Been Wrong Before. And then a song that I really love is I Hurt For You. I think that would top 5 or something like that for me. But the crowning jewel on the top of that song is a song that later on in life Conway Twitty recorded on his Finishing Touches album. So I love the song. I sing it quite a bit. And it did real well for me, but Conway did it. And then later, in the 90s, I kind of had a resurgence, and that's when Rock Me came out. And it was around the time that Rock Me was taking off, and I was traveling all over performing that song that Patti cut, Hurt Me Bad in a Real Good Way. And one of my most surreal moments was at SeaWorld. I was sitting backstage, actually in a trailer, and on the other side of the park, I had Rock Me that I was singing at that time, and across the park I could hear her singing Hurt Me Bad in a Real Good Way, and I was like, I'm going to remember this moment forever. This is too good to be true.
Well, you have written for, like, Tanya Tucker.
Yes.
Leanne Rimes. Diana Ross.
Yes.
Prince. You said Prince.
You know, you couldn't plan that stuff out. It's just following your heart and staying productive and just, getting your music out there. Tanya had a #1 with Can I See You Tonight? Like right here in this house. My husband called me on the phone one day. We weren't married quite yet, but he called and he said, this friend of ours in Texas, he called and says, Anna's met this little girl. She's 13 years old, and she's coming to town to get a record deal, but all she can talk about is meeting Deborah Allen. He goes, says she could sing really good. And I said, really? He goes, no, it's up to you whether you want to get together with her or not. And I said, say there's this 13-year-old girl that thinks I'm cool. He goes, yeah, but now it's up to you. And I said, hey, I don't care what she sings like. If there's a 13-year-old girl who thinks I'm cool, I want to meet her. Well, they came shimmering up. They drove up in their camper. It was a truck with a camper on the back of it. She, her mom and dad, along with their lawyer, was with them. They kind of come shimmering up to the house. She steps in the foyer and she's looking around. She goes, someday I'm going to have a house like this. And in my mind, I was thinking, wish you could have seen my last house. It was a lot bigger than this one, but I love this house. It's perfect for me. But so I just showed her around. I went upstairs, picked up this guitar. I started just kind of noodling around because I was thinking, what am I going to say? I don't really know her that well yet. I started playing the guitar. She started belting out a song called My Baby. And I just kept playing it. And at the end of it, I said, I cannot believe you knew all the words to my song, Leanne. She goes, oh, yeah. I learned all the songs on both of your albums. She only knew my albums on Giant Records at that time. She goes, I learned all my songs on both of your albums, and I am getting a record deal, and I am recording some of your songs. And in my mind, I was thinking, bless her heart, she just doesn't realize how tough this business is. Would you know, 9 months later, she recorded 2 of my songs. And then on her second album, she recorded 5 of my songs. And needless to say, her star has just taken off.
Are you still good friends with her?
Oh, yeah. When I see her, now she's really busy. She lives in LA, but we'll always be friends because we're part of each other's story.
That is amazing. Tell me about this guitar.
This guitar is very special to me. It's probably out of tune right now, so I'm not going to really play it, but I love this guitar. It's hand-painted, and it was right around the time I was getting ready to put out a brand new video on a song called Wrong Side of Love. And I was directing and producing that video, and I had asked my friend Mark Nicolosi to help me. But in the meantime, one of the executives at Gibson called me up. They had given me a couple of guitars, and he said, I want you to come down to the NAMM show. I've got a present for you. And I went, okay. So I walk into the NAMM show. It's huge. It's a place that's full of musicians and the latest equipment and guitar players in there shredding their guitars and just all kinds of sounds going on. And he said, here, I want you to have this. Well, it was the book of the 100th year of the anniversary of Gibson guitars. And I mean, it was probably a $100 book. And I was like, Larry, I love this book. I mean, I'll treasure this book. Thank you so much. He goes, come on, let's walk around, take a look. So he slung his arm over my shoulder, and we were walking around. We walked around this panel, and there were these 3 guitars hanging on this panel. And 2 of them were kind of real red, white and blue, real patriotic, and then there was this guitar. I went around there and went, oh my gosh, I love that guitar. And he goes, which one? Which one do you like? I went, that one right there with that big flower on it. And he goes, do you really like it? I said, like it? Of course I like it. I love it. Anybody would love that guitar. And he goes, well, it's yours. I went, are you sure? And he goes, well, you really do like it? I said, yes, I love it. So this was a gift from Gibson Guitars. It's got 17 coats of paint on it. And I'm a little embarrassed to say I don't know the exact artist that did it, but I need to find out because this thing has gone with me all over the world. It was lost overnight in a cab in Washington, D.C. It's been everywhere with me. Oh. I love it.
Well, you know, when we come back from break, we're going to talk more about the person that inspired you, that almost lost her voice.
Okay.
And what God did in your life.
Yes.
And your faith in Him.
Absolutely.
We'll be right back.
I love it.
Deborah, let's talk about your faith. You mentioned your mother.
My mother. Oh, my mother and I are so close. And, you know, it's funny, just in a lot of interviews that I do, people will almost always say, when did you start singing? And I go back and I think, then I keep going back some more. And then I realize, you know, I was singing before I was born. I was born singing. And I really believe that there is a good reason for that, and that is because my mother, she had 2 daughters. She even had a little boy that passed away when he was 5 weeks old. So she's just a beautiful person, and she's a very strong person and a very spiritual person. But she had started noticing that when she would talk, her voice would kind of go like that, you know, kind of get a click in it. And she said, I didn't even tell Daddy, I didn't tell anybody because I knew no one would believe me, but I knew something was going on. She said, so when Mother was carrying you, she said, you know, I prayed for you to be a healthy baby, just the way I prayed for Nancy and Judy. But she said, you know, at the end, I said, please let this be a healthy baby. And, oh, and please let this baby have a strong voice. And, you know, I believe that prayer was answered. And to hear her tell it, and someday I hope you can hear her tell it, because no one can tell our story the way she can. But they said when they brought me over to her, she was holding me in her arms, and she'd go, Mother just fell in love with you. You were just like peaches and cream. She said, I was saying, thank you, God. She's perfect. She's got all her fingers, all her toes. And she said, all of a sudden, from the left to the right over your body went this every color of the rainbow from one side to the next. And she said, it got my attention. And all of a sudden, I saw your name appear, D-E-B-O-R-A-H, just the way you spell it. And she said, I say, thank you, God. I'm going to name her Deborah. And she said, and then all of a sudden, all these little lights started flickering around, like out in Las Vegas. And she said, and eventually, she said, I was just holding on to that moment with God. I felt like that was a revelation of some kind. And she said, I never told Daddy or Nancy or Judy that I had that moment with God. But she said, when the nurse came in, she said, the only thing that would have given it away, the nurse comes in and says, so, what are you going to name your little daughter? She goes, I'm going to name her Deborah. She goes, oh, Deborah, is that D-E-B-R-A? She goes, no, it was D-E-B-O-R-A-H. She said that was the only thing that gave it away, that I had seen that. And then I actually remember this when I was about 4 years old. We didn't wear seatbelts back then. We were headed downtown to my daddy's shop. They had an automobile upholstery shop. In fact, they even upholstered Elvis's first bus. But I just remember riding along, and I scoot over close to Mother, and I go, can you keep a secret? She's just driving along. She goes, sure, Mother can keep a secret. Mother's your best friend. You can tell Mother anything. I go, I would like to be a singer or an actress or an entertainer. Do you think I can? She said, my heart just started pounding because I knew that was an affirmation of that revelation I had when God was speaking to me in the hospital. And she said, yes, you can be anything you want to be. And she said, and Mother's going to help you. Now, they didn't have, the voice and all of that stuff that they have now, but she did help me get out in front of people and get comfortable being in front of people. But I love Mother because she listened to me as a little human being. She didn't just brush it off or anything.
How's your faith helped you get through some of the ups and downs?
Well, I'll tell you what, it has helped me a lot because this business, for anybody that's in it, I always say, you should do this business if you're so dedicated to it that you can't, you don't want a plan B. It does have its challenges. And you can be real excited at one moment, and then you can be very disappointed the next. That you will hear people go, no, don't take it personally. You're going, how can I not take it personally? My whole life is in my writing and my music. But I always remembered, it goes back to my mother's prayer. I feel like that was an answered prayer from God, the fact that I'm able to sing and express myself to people and enjoy that feeling of that moment. And I always say, there's no way that I could quit. It would just be like a slap in the face to God. He gave me this gift, and whatever challenges come with that, I know that He will help me rise to each occasion, and so far He has.
Well, Deborah, you have a new CD coming out, The Art of Dreaming.
Yes.
I have to ask you, with this and all your other songs, I mean, the inspiration, what is behind your inspiration?
Well, it's different every time. Sometimes the night that I was in Memphis, and I finally did go in Graceland, because we used to see Elvis all the time in Memphis. He was in our midst all the time. But I was living here when he had passed away. And so when I heard they opened his house up for tours, I was like, I don't want to go tour his house. That's like sacred ground. But years later, I got the opportunity. And when I stepped into his house, and I did think it was okay to go on in, I felt his spirit so strongly. And it just followed me, with me through the entire house. I could see him living his life happily. I could see everything. And I got in the car that night after our show, because we performed there, and when on the way back home to Nashville with Raymond, I just kept saying, that's amazing, amazing. And I went, amazing Graceland, hurry up, let's get back to Nashville. As soon as I hit that back door, I came over here and stayed up till daylight writing my song Amazing Graceland. That was one that came from a true experience, but sometimes you can hear someone else's experience, or sometimes just a hint of a melody will trigger something. So it's different for every song.
What about The Art of Dreaming?
Well, The Art of Dreaming, I remember where I was when I got the idea for that song. My record deal had been transferred from Nashville via New York out to L.A. I felt like I had been kind of traded like a baseball card for a while, but I didn't understand it. But I was going, okay, God, I'm here for the adventure, and I'm going to try to rise to the occasion each time. And I just remember sitting on the top of Mulholland Drive, looking out at all the beautiful lights and the, mountains and things. And that just came to my mind. The art of dreaming is believing. I'm not going to quit believing.
Oh, Deborah, I just love your stories and your music. And
Thank you.
just thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Terry, I feel like we could talk forever.
We could talk.
I would
forever.
love to get back together
We
sometime
will.
and talk
We will.
again.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for your show. I think it's a wonderful show, and I'm just so proud to be a part of it.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.
My friend, do you have dreams that you feel that have shattered? With the Lord, there is no plan B, only plan A. Just follow Him and follow His dreams for your life. This is today's Nashville. This is faith.
Cornerstone Television wishes to thank all our faithful viewers whose consistent prayers and financial support have made this program possible.